Okay, step number 14, we are going to be attaching hinges to our lid now. Everything should be done. We have sanded the whole thing, we've made our top, and it's ready to just attach with some hinges here. Anytime you're attaching hardware to a project, you just want to make sure, usually to have someone else help you with this, just to hold things in place and other things, but it's just easier with another person. On your paper it shows what you need. 2 butt hinges, your 8 small 5/8 inch long screws, cordless drill, and a 1/16 inch self-centering bit. And there's pictures of what those look like. All those things are going to be in a box here that I have, and I keep this in that cabinet where the biscuits are at. You should be able to just find all the things you need in there. The hinges, the screws, our self-centering bit, and everything you're going to need. So go ahead and get all the stuff you need. And then next it says figure out which part of your storage chest will be the front and which will be the back. And make sure that you place the storage chest how you want it to face. So figure out, maybe the top looks better one way or it only fits one way. But figure out the front of your storage chest and the back, because we want to make sure our hinges go on the back, obviously. So take some time to figure out what looks the best for that. Alright, number 3 on your paper, it says measure and mark 3 inches from both ends of your top where the hinges will be placed and trace the hinge outline. You can see the picture there. So we're dealing with the back, so as we open this up, we want to make sure we're drawing our lines 3 inches from the back part where the hinge is going to be at. So I'm going to place it here, and I'm just going to measure and mark a line about 3 inches over. And if you have something in the way, like a knot or something else, go ahead and mark it at 2.5 or somewhere out of the way there. But we're just going to mark the line about 3 inches over on each one. And then we're just going to trace our hinge where it lines up. So just place your hinge right on it, line it up with your mark, and we're just going to trace that hinge outline there, just so we know where that hinge is going to be located at. And do it on both sides here. Just again lining it up right on your 3 inch mark. Okay, once we've traced our lines, we want to, on the next step it says to transfer the lines over to the top edge of your lid so that we can actually see where we're going to be attaching these hinges, because we're going to be notching out a small little section for the hinge to be placed into. And so to do that we're going to use a router, and we need to be able to know where to start and stop. So we're just going to transfer these lines over to the top side here. And I found it's easiest just to take your hinge and line it up where the marks were at, and then just look at the top, and we'll just transfer our lines over so we know where to start and stop on the router. Do it to this other side as well, line it up where the marks are at, and just transfer those lines over to the top edge just so we can see where to start and stop. On the back side of your paper it says use the router in the white table to route out that little small recess where the hinges are going to be lined up and inset. And then make sure that you line up your marks with the center line on the router, and I'll show you that when we head out over to the router. So let's come on over to that white router table, and we'll...
Okay, on this router here we've got a center line, and we're just going to line that right up with one of our first marks. And we're going to come straight into the bit, and then we're just going to slide our board over until it gets to the other line, and then just pull it away. And when you do this, you just want to make sure you keep nice tight pressure down so your board doesn't lift up at all when it's going. And then we're also going to do the other side of this as well. Same thing, line up our center line with the first mark, slide it over, and then pull it back away on the second mark. So. If you look, it's basically just cut a small little recess out right where those hinges are going to be placed. If that for some reason is not perfectly flat, if it's all bumpy, just run it again and just make sure you smooth it all up. So just cutting a small little recess.
Okay, next, after we've cut these little recesses in here, we're just going to place our hinges in it and then line them up where we want to be placed, that 3 inches in. And then we're just going to trace where the screws are going to be attached. So if you just line this up. Now make sure when you do this, when you attach these, that this hinge will actually close all the way in that little recess. If you have it the other way, trying to put it in this way, those hinges will not close all the way. And so you want to make sure they're actually going to close all the way when they can go into that little recess there. And we're just going to line this up where you want it, and then we're going to trace our little holes where you want to pre-drill some small holes. So again, just line it up, trace our holes so we know where we're going to be drilling these at. And then I've got that 1/16 inch self-centering bit already put in the drill here. We want to drill a small pilot hole for the screws. This will help so the wood does not split. If you just put some screws into here, chances are the wood might split. So what we want to do, this actual bit will help keep it straight up and down so you don't go at an angle. But if you put your hinge right on it, that bit will fit right perfectly in the hole of the hinge. And then we're going to drill all the way in on this. Make sure you put some good pressure. And it'll just pre-drill a small little pilot. So our boards won't split. Do the same thing on this other side here. Again, just pre-drill. And once we pre-drill them, go ahead and attach your hinge. Now again, make sure that you have this hinge facing the correct way. If it's the wrong way, it's not going to close all the way. So be sure that it's this way, and then you're going to open that up and go ahead and just screw these small little screws into place there. And suck them down all the way. Make sure that they're nice and flush when you're putting those on as well. Those little pre-drilled holes that you drilled should hold that screw in place so it's a little bit easier. And we're going to edit that out. Okay, when you're attaching it to the actual storage chest box here, it's best to have someone else hold it for you or prop it up against something else so it can be held up. And you want to make sure when you put this on here that the center part of the hinge does not extend into the board itself. You're actually going to have that be just over the outside edge here. Same thing on the other side. And also make sure that it's perfectly flush on the edges, right where the storage chest matches up on both sides here. So with it held into place, it may be a good idea just to go ahead and trace our holes right where you want them to be at. So if it moves, we could put it back up right where the holes need to be at. And that way we can line things up when we pre-drill. And I do want you to pre-drill as well with our self-centering bit, just to mark those little holes. And then we'll just go ahead and put the screws in. When you're putting these screws in, I would start with just 2 of the screws, 1 on each side. Because when we go to close this, if something does not match up right, you can adjust those hinges. And it's easier to only put 1 in each, and if we need to shift it around, we can shift it. This one lines up perfect. I don't know whose project this is. Oh, okay. But it lines up perfect, so we don't need to adjust any of those hinges. We're going to go ahead and put the other 2 back in there. And again, suck them down nice and tight, but don't over tighten them. If you over tighten them, you may pop the head off the screw and other things, so just be careful. And there we go. If our lid does not line up perfectly flush, we could just do some sanding here on the outside edges or other things. and just get it all lined up how you want it. And then come get my signature when you're done. Okay.